if you're doing any kind of unconscious exercise, if it's like driving the car or waiting in line or vacuuming the house or whatever that is, you can go on a little mental vacation into your future because you've already created it. It's easy for you to go back in there. But if you're also playing the song as well, then it becomes this very powerful moment. And remember, the more often that you can go there in your mind, the more you're creating these neural pathways that along the neural pathways are traveling thoughts that are in alignment with this future that you're creating, with this, reality that you're playing in your mind. So that, it really does help to circumvent some of those limiting beliefs and old programs and old thoughts that will come up to you that sabotage your progress.
Welcome to the MINDTRX podcast with breakthrough ideas to live your best life possible and how to make it happen. I'm Paul Scheele, and today we'll be talking with Natalie Ledwell. Natalie Ledwell is a best-selling author, speaker, and host of the podcast Not Over, Just Different. Her revolutionary online personal development company called Mind Movies has reached over 10 million people worldwide. Natalie has now launched a groundbreaking social and emotional learning curriculum for schools called Personal Growth Studies. The evidence-based curriculum is designed to empower students in grades K through 12 with high self-esteem and nurture extraordinarily happy, confident, and fulfilled youth. Hello, Natalie. It's so good to be with you. Thanks for being a part of this podcast.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, Paul. It is always a pleasure to be with you. And I always love our conversations. So the fact that we get to share this with the audience, with your listeners, is just even more amazing.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Every time we get together at a meeting, and I just love being around your energy, your enthusiasm, but also the power of your focus to create a difference in the world. So thanks for all the good work that you have done.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I remember a story about a football coach named Vince Lombardi from the Green Bay Packers. And he would start the football season out with the basics. And he'd hold up a football and he'd say, "Gentlemen, this is a football." And his quarterback, Bart Starr, said, "Coach, could you slow down, please? I'm taking notes." But I would like to take some time to really think through the basics. If you would tell our listener about the idea that you have of bringing this to children, it will make sense in the context of, wouldn't it be cool if we had all grown up with these principles? So tell us a little bit about your project.
Yeah. Well, the program itself is interesting because it falls under the banner of social and emotional learning. And social emotional learning is really helping children and students to be able to self-regulate their emotions, to understand that if they find themselves in a place where they're feeling sad or feeling low, that they have tools and things that they can use to be able to shift them out of that emotion. And I'm a little reluctant to call it that these days because it seems to be so much more than that. We have included things like, yoga movements and meditation, and we talk a lot about gratitude and empathy. And with the younger kids, yes, we focus on how to regulate their emotions. But as they get older, we're also talking about, what are your personal standards? Who are you? How are you showing up in the world? How do you want the world to see you? What's important to you? And then also helping them to, ahead of time, be able to, when they are looking at their values, go, well, if I'm in a situation where someone's offering me drugs or I'm having too much to drink or, all these different scenarios, that they already know and have thought about how they are going to respond in that situation. So we're trying to really set them up for life. So I think more, I call it emotional intelligence and life skills, because that seems to be, what we seem to be teaching. And the way that the program is set up is that we have, the teacher is actually teaching the lessons in the classroom. I, have them all the lessons in video as well, so they could just play the video. But it's helping not just the students, but the teachers as well understand the basic things that we can do every single day that shift the needle, that make a difference into what our energy is and how we can show up and how we can, show up for other people as well.
Well, I love that you've recognized the application of the principles that you've been teaching for decades now and how it can be applied to all kinds of contexts. I remember when I studied hypnotherapy, and then I learned neurolinguistic programming, then I learned accelerated learning, and I would speak at the NLP conferences, and I'd speak at the accelerated learning conferences, and I'd keep saying, you need to hear what they're doing, and you need to hear what they're doing. And there is a beautiful blend that's applicable to anyone, any human being, because we're learning to run the hardware, the firmware, the software of this amazing spacesuit that we get to inhabit for the duration of our human experience. And emotions is a key part of it. I always talk about open mind, open heart, open will, and wherever we can land at that moment, we want to be able to do that. So let's talk about the basics of manifesting a life that we would choose to live.
Yeah. Well, for me, I actually have it condensed in a system that's only 6 steps. And the first step is focusing on our emotions. Because I think for a lot of us, when we go, okay, I want my life to be different. I want to create something different, something better. But if we're in a place where we're looking at a lot of debt or pain or loneliness, unless we can emotionally get ourselves outside of that situation, the best that we could possibly do is maybe come up with a solution that can get us out of that current situation. We don't have the optimism to be able to go, no, let's dream big. If I could have anything I want, what would that be? So step one for me is always getting into my happy place. How do I get into higher frequency emotions, which gives me the belief and the optimism to be able to create something amazing?
Excellent. So I want to pause right there if I could, because a teacher that I had, Arnold Patton, said that we're not a very emotionally intelligent culture, that humanity really doesn't have a good language for the many ways in which emotions can show up. We have two, it's fear and it's love. And between that, I don't know. And biblically, perfect love casteth out all fear, right? So
Right.
we're given those two options and not a whole lot more. And when I hear you speaking about this, would you say that it's the same thing as being able to manage my state management? So
Yes.
which would include something about my mind, it would include something about my will, it would include something about my emotions.
Yes. Well, the other thing too, because when we're talking about manifesting, we're also, touching on law of attraction. And when we say that we want to be resonating at the same frequency or similar frequency to the things that we want to attract, what is our frequency? What manipulates, what changes our frequency? Well, it's our thoughts and emotions. That is what the frequency that we're sending out into the universe. And every emotion has a different frequency.
All right. So I want to get back to this idea of the law of attraction. When I was a kid growing up in college, I heard the idea called The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. We become in life what we think about. It's this idea that there is this power that we have to think a higher level thought and actually create that higher level thought. If we don't raise our consciousness or the quality of our thoughts, we're only going to reproduce more of the same. So when The Secret, the movie came out that really embodied this amazing concept called the law of attraction, we really started hearing more discussion about vibrational energy, this idea that we also teach in Spring Forest Qigong or Feng Shui, the idea that we want to elevate the vibration, which is also then like a broadcast signal, or you call it like a beacon that's sending out uh, whatever it is that we want.
Yeah,
We're actually become a magnet to it.
absolutely. And, it also, when we're resonating at that frequency, we have positive thoughts, and we're emitting positive energy, which means that we're attracting, the right people. Ideas are coming to us. We're in this expanded state that we go, well, I believe that this can happen. And then, through training our reticular activating system and visualizing and seeing ourselves already, having achieved this and feeling what it's like to have already achieved it, which is as important as what you see when you visualize. You need to be feeling like you're already there. Then you're starting to see the opportunities and meet those people, and these things are coming to you to help you to make that happen.
And they may be around us all the time. Those
Oh,
opportunities
yeah.
may be there, but because we're not actually sorting for those opportunities, we never spot them. And I like to make that distinction, positive thinking. Again, I kind of grew up on the idea of, hey, think positive. What is that exactly? And the idea that positive comes from the root POSI, which means to position. So we're positioning our thinking with the end result in mind. Negative thinking means we're negating the possibility for what it is that we're choosing to
Yeah.
create.
Well, how we can, accelerate or enhance the amount of positive thoughts that we're having is through visualization. Because when we can visualize ourselves already driving that car, living in that house, taking that vacation, having this success, what happens is when we visualize effectively, and I'm going to take you through a little process on how to do that effectively. What happens is the neural pathways that will be firing when this actually happens start to fire, even though it's not your reality right now. Your subconscious mind can't differentiate. And so when you can sit down and visualize, and rather than see yourself as like a character in a movie, you actually immerse yourself in a moment that you will experience when you reach this goal. So for me, like I attracted my partner during COVID, like everything's shut down and I met my perfect partner. We've been together for 3 years now. And one of the moments that I would visualize was us being on vacation. And I was on a beach. I could feel the deck chair underneath my legs. I could smell the ocean. I could hear the waves crashing. I could feel holding this person's hand. I didn't see an actual specific person. I just saw, a figure holding the hand. And my feelings in that moment was just pure contentment and love and gratitude. And I remember it was maybe 6 months after we were together, we were at a Dr. Joe Dispenza event. We were, doing little workshops there, and a friend come up to me who was attending the event, and we were sitting by the pool looking out over the ocean, and it was the exact thing that I had been visualizing. I'm like, I'm having a moment here because this is exactly what I was visualizing. So the more that you can do that and feel what it's like to already be there, the faster you can create that in your reality.
And this is super important also from the standpoint of visualization, because if you think about it, if you see yourself over there driving that car, it's a disassociated image. And right now, you're seeing the world through your eyes, you're hearing it through your ears, you're feeling it in your feelings. So it's a fully associated image. And what's super, super cool about what you're saying is that you have this brief glimpse or this moment of a full sensory realization of a future state. And in that moment, you're having the experience as fully associated. You're in first person experiencing it. And to the brain, that's much more real than seeing yourself over there driving that fancy car that you wish you had. And kudos to you for recognizing the power of this felt shift that needs to occur in making that a reality.
Well, the other little trick hack on how to emotionally get into the same state that you will is to use music or use a song. You know, with Mind Movies, we help people make these little movies, like these slideshows that, you know, have photos of the things they want and affirmations describing it as if it's happening now. But then the song becomes the soundtrack for your life. And, you know, I was talking before about meeting my perfect partner. I mean, I had a mind movie for that. And the song that I chose for that mind movie was a John Legend song, All of Me. Now, Bert and I will dance around the kitchen to that song when we're playing it because it symbolizes everything that I was working towards, everything that I wanted. So when you can choose a song, and it doesn't necessarily need to be with a mind movie, but if you just choose a song that you can play that will help you to emotionally, you know, get to that emotional state, it's super helpful. And the other thing I wanted to mention is once you've created this moment in your mind when you're visualizing, you don't necessarily need to be sitting down with your eyes closed to go back there again. If you're doing any kind of unconscious exercise, if it's like driving the car or waiting in line or vacuuming the house or whatever that is, you can go on a little mental vacation into your future because you've already created it. It's easy for you to go back in there. But if you're also playing the song as well, then it becomes this very powerful moment. And remember, the more often that you can go there in your mind, the more you're creating these neural pathways that along the neural pathways are traveling thoughts that are in alignment with this future that you're creating, with this, you know, reality that you're playing in your mind. So that, it really does help to circumvent some of those limiting beliefs and old programs and old thoughts that will come up to you that sabotage your progress.
Well, I love this idea also, Natalie. If most people understand the idea of an inner child, it's a past that's existed, and you can see yourself in a past situation. We also have an inner elder, a future self, an idealized self. And one of the things that I hear you saying is that today, in the way you live your life, you're setting your future self up to enjoy the experience that you know is your destiny to have.
Yeah.
And this notion that it may already be complete and it's awaiting your arrival is also a very different way of thinking about time and space. My teacher used to say, Paul, if you set the goal, it's actually already yours. The end result is already, I would argue with them, just, well, how could that be? I'm visualizing that car. It's not in my driveway right now. He said, well, if that's what you believe, well, hold it. Yeah, that's what I believe because it's not here. Well, if that's what you believe, how are you going to have it? Right. Well, wait. And so, how do we outrun the editor function of our mind, or what you are referring to as that way in which we sabotage our best efforts, or our energy, or our optimism, or our belief in the reality of that goal taking place? Because that's what we want. That's what we say we're dreaming of. That's our wish. So why wouldn't we connect with that future self who's already gotten it and say, so how else should I live today? And it seems to me that that's the connection that you're making.
Yeah. Well, and also with students that I work with, I think part of the process that I take them through is really getting clear about what that is. Because we go, yeah, I'd really like that car. You go, okay, well, I would really like that, successful business. You go, okay, but what does that really mean to you? Because a lot of people go, well, I want to be wealthy. And you go, okay, so how do you visualize that? What does that look like? And so I take them through this little process where we write out affirmations. And the reason I use affirmations is because once you read these affirmations, this is what helps you with your visualization. You have to write them in present tense because you're going to be visualizing in present tense, and it makes it easier for your brain to make that leap. But when they're writing their affirmations, I'll go, okay, I need you to describe what it is that you want, as if you have it now. I also need you to describe what life looks like once you have it. And this is where we start to play a little. And you're like, okay, well, what does this mean? How does it change my life? What does that look like? And then I also get people to focus on why they want this. Like, why do you want it? And I ask them, okay, who are you serving? And how does this improve their lives? Who do you love? And then who, for yourself, like, why do you want to create this? Because you will be hitting some obstacles, and that's just life. But this helps to give you that burning motivation to keep going. Then I get them to look at, what they need to do. What actions do you need to take? Do you need to make some changes to your daily practice? What does that look like? Then I also get them to look at what I call your thoughts. So we do know that our thoughts and actions have created the reality that we have right now. So how do we need to change our thoughts to create this new reality that we want to create? So I either go, okay, well, how does a wealthy person think? How does a person in love think? And I also become very aware of any kind of old programs and negative thoughts that are coming up. So I can go, okay, if I'm choosing to release them, what am I replacing them with? We can't just go like that and go, okay, well, now what? Decide ahead of time what you're going to be replacing those thoughts with. And then the last one, which is really important as well, is who do you become? Or who do you need to be to step into this new future? What are your characteristics? What are your values? What is it that you really need to make sure that you are embodying to be able to step into this new future? So when you've really gone through the process of going that deep into what it is and what this future looks like, it makes it even more real and more believable because you have everything already written out.
Nice. So I hear you saying that it's our identity at some level. We certainly have our values and our beliefs. We have all of the capabilities that we would be demonstrating, all the knowledge, all of the skills. We have the way we would be behaving, and we also have what does the environment around us looks like. So you have this beautiful stack or hierarchy of beliefs that actually are actually present when you have arrived at that future perfect that you're envisioning at this point. When you have shared your work with people over these decades, what have you noticed is the most common tripping point, the place where people stumble or they miss that one step and as a result kind of languish in creating more of the same?
Yeah. Well, with a lot of people that I work with, they come in because a lot of the ways that they find me is through maybe a webinar I've done with Mary Morrissey or with John Assaraf. And so they understand this concept of limiting beliefs. And they go, look, I must have limiting beliefs. Well, we all have limiting beliefs, let's face it. We all have old programs. If we had a childhood, we have some old programs. But they use it as a crutch or an excuse. Well, this happened to me when I was young, so I had this limiting belief. So it's hands on heads. I can't move any forward anymore. Without going, well, okay, I know I have this belief. I know where it comes from, but it's like they've missed the next step of, well, what do I do about it? How do I release it? How do I move on from there? And it's like, well, this is the reason. They use it as the reason or the excuse for not to be successful. Because what's part of our old programs is not just the thoughts that we think, but also all these old behaviors, the procrastination, the perfectionism, all these things that are attached, that are connected to these old programs as well. And so when we look at all the things that have made it hard before, or we, take a couple of steps forward and with our conscious mind going, I want to create this amazing thing. And then, a couple of things will happen, or that, they start procrastinating and they go, oh, see, this is the same thing that happened before. I'm out. And it's amazing what human beings will do to avoid feeling disappointed.
So this is a concept that I've heard referred to as resistance, that we're up against this force, this resistance. And Stephen Pressfield, who was an author, wrote about it in a book called The War of Art, where he is an artist and many as artists, or you as a program developer or a speaker or a creator, we get up against our own resistance that says, well, life is so easy if we don't bother with that kind of thing. It's going to require a lot of effort. And so if we have an open mind to the possibility, if we have an open heart to attract to us what it is that we need, then it's about our will to take the necessary next step, as opposed to, here's this old program that's going, and that's why I'm not succeeding. It's being able to lean into that a little bit more powerfully, or to recognize this is just the status quo raising its ugly head, trying to keep no change from happening. And I love what you're saying, Natalie, is you're going to change.
Yeah.
Who do you have to become? What thoughts are you going to have to think in order to live that life you've imagined? And this is a great way to really say, all right, where do I keep tripping myself up and what's next? And I would like to ask, first of all, what do you do at that point where resistance seems to be the most powerful? When I'd rather go have a drink, or I'd rather go and mess around, or I'd rather go on vacation than doing this work. And there is this need for balancing our lives. What do you do when resistance seems strongest?
Well, me personally, because I do feel, especially with this school project, I've felt a lot of resistance. I feel like I am way out of my league, but I know enough, and I remind myself enough of how I have the ability to do this. And it's not just me. It's not just me humanly doing this. I'm eliciting leveraging the power of the universe as well to help me to be able to make this. So I remind when these old programs come up, number one, I recognize what it is. I acknowledge what it is. And I'm like, this is old stuff. This is not true. And then I will sit with it and go, okay. And you're talking about the inner child before. I have a little process that I do, and I do this every morning now. And I had my story is my biological mother left when I was 3 years old. So on my altar, I have a photo of the 3-year-old self, me when I was 3. And I have a conversation with her every morning, because if I know if resistance is coming up, it's coming from her. So I will sit with her and go, I'm here, I love you, and what do you need?
Right, because she's scared.
She's so scared.
She's so scared.
Yeah. So I will always have a conversation with her, and I like to spend at least 15 to 20 minutes here, because I know because this is such a practice for me, that when I'm quiet long enough, I get insight, I get guidance, and I expect it to happen. So this is, I think, why it comes through so easily for me. And then I often will then go, okay, well, what do I need to move this? Because sometimes I will get stuck. I get to a certain level and I'm like, okay, who do I need to attract? What is this next step? And sometimes I'll have someone come in before I even know that I needed them. I'm like, ooh, okay, that's the next thing. I've got you already. And realizing that, I think sometimes because, I can't do this. When I go into the I can't do this, I'm talking about the small me, because it's not all just me. I've got to remember, I've got leveraging the universe here. I'm leveraging the help of other people. And I've attracted and manifested so many incredibly amazing, mind expanding things in my life, that I know that I can do this too.
It's so important, Natalie, to recognize that the bigger the vision, if it's a massively transformative purpose, which yours is around changing education for this kind of education, and you have high hard goals, which these are, you are going to trigger all kinds of resistance at the threshold. You're looking at this gap wondering, how in the world am I ever going to get there? And so it's almost as if who you are becomes like the mother that child didn't have, or the grandmother energy, the future self coming to that child. And there's something quite mystical and magical. I wish we could get into some of the stories I've collected over the years about the inner elder, because this is a real presence. You are an inner elder for that child who didn't have one at that time. And the time that you spend bonding is creating bridges to a future. Because it's like if you're saying, or I was saying to my inner child, this whole situation you're going through, it'll be over. And it's going to be a very important part of the work you're going to do very much later in your life. You have to do this. Thank you for going through these struggles so that I could enjoy this life that I now enjoy. And the child suddenly recognizes his or her importance to the future and the whole trajectory of life. So I can absolutely understand why that's the time you really connect. The bigger the gap, the more the resistance, the more the fear, the more important it is to connect with those resources. Now, I don't want to move off this because I know this is a super important point. And there's this idea also about surrender. Like at some point, you recognize not only that the universe has your back, but wait, this isn't even about me. This was a gift from the universe for me to carry forward. It's not my work. It's the work of a divine energy and evolutionary impulse that brought me here. Where do you find in your teaching of the concept of manifestation that there is a trust and surrender in that greater power that's expressing through you as you?
Well, it's my final step, and it's probably the hardest to embody, because once you have, got into your happy place and set an intention and got clear and started visualizing and taking action, then you have to just let it all go. And people go, wait, what? What do you mean? And by that, I mean, you can't be married to what it's going to look like when it shows up or how it's going to happen. And most importantly, you cannot be married to when it's going to happen. You have to trust that everything that is coming up, any delay, anything that is happening in this moment is meant to happen. Everything's happening in divine timing. Everything's happening the way it should be. And so reminding yourself of that all the time. And believe me, this school project I've been working on for several years. I mean, I was ready at the beginning of the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, and then, and every time I go, I'm surprised it hasn't, fired more than this. And then another piece will come in. We now have this voice recognition technology, so we can, measure the kids' emotions. Last week, I just had a meeting, and this AI company who has like military programs that also have to do something for the public, and now we're going to be adding an AI counselor, so that the kids have someone that they can talk to and they can choose their avatar. And I'm like, okay, well, this is why didn't happen before, because all these pieces had to fall into place. So every time I get impatient, which or or a little frustrated, I'm like, you know what? It's just the way it's meant to be, because as soon as I start getting frustrated or impatient or, desperate or whatever, these are lower frequency emotions. I can't surround this project with that. I have to surrender and let it be.
And what's interesting is your trajectory before all of this was serial entrepreneur, creating successes and failing fast and getting it right and, making things happen. And when we're talking about some of these bigger life issues that we're here to help bring into the world, being midwives for what's trying to emerge, right? Doing hospice for what has to pass.
Mm.
There is this important work that there is a divine right timing to so many things, and the frustrations and impatience is really of a smaller self.
Yeah.
And a great leverage point too, to recognize when they're up, like, oop, I'm in it right now, to just say lower frequency, not helpful. Where are we going? Optimism. Let's keep on that track. I think it's a great cue, if you will, for a completely different routine moving forward. So you actually start a habit of thinking about this too is perfect, or as our friend Byron Katie says, loving what is, right?
Yeah.
Is to
Yeah.
be able to see that this too is perfect, even as it's unfolding right now.
Well, and I think that also my little connection with my inner child that I do each morning is also reminding me of the divine part of who I am. Because I can go into the story. I grew up in the country in Australia with one of 8 kids in a 3-bedroom house with 1 bathroom, and I come from humble beginnings, and I go, really, this is what I'm doing, and it's like, well, that's just my meat suit. That's just the stories. Who I really
Neat.
am is the divine part of me, who is like the divine part of all of us, and
Yes.
that part of me can do anything.
And that part of you had to go through all of that to get
Yeah,
here today. And
exactly.
that's the beauty of it, is really recognizing nothing's ever wrong, and a failure is just that way in which we become so much stronger.
Mm.
So as a kind of a wrap up, if we could look at this trajectory of manifesting the dreams that we have, knowing where we can trip ourselves up and knowing that we're a part of something greater. I have always said, once you can manifest the job, you can manifest the relationship, you can get the car, you can get the house, you get the income, you get all of that, then what? Like, what will you then apply this magnificence that you are toward creating in the world? And can we create a world that's socially just, that's sustainable, that's spiritually fulfilling? Can we create heaven on earth? And in whatever way we're called to do it, we need to step up. And when we get that call, I think there's a great phrase that God doesn't call the qualified, God qualifies the called, right? So we don't have to feel that today we're qualified for it. It's okay to learn as we go. And the tools that you've brought to so many people are a great way to stay in that growth energy for the rest of our lives. So, parting thoughts on that process of manifestation and encouragement to those of us who are working for big goals in our lives.
Well, I think that a lot of us fall in, and I used to do this too. Like, this is before I found my man. I'm like, okay, I'm going to work on myself, because then when I get into a relationship, I'm going to be a whole person, and I'm going to show up whole, and I'm going to be a great partner. Or when I go into something like the school project, I'm like, right, I'm going to work on myself and become this person, because I think I need to be this person to step into that. And yes, that's important. You can do that. But don't think for a moment that when you actually get there, actually being in the relationship or being in the project or being in the business is going to be the catalyst for a whole bunch of other stuff to come up that could only come up when you're in the situation. So for me, I'm always open to expanding. I'm always, willing to look. I'm always, because I think that if we're not stretching ourselves, if we're not, stepping outside our comfort zone and really pushing the boundary a little bit, then we do become stagnant. And I'm always open to going, right, okay, woo, I'm getting triggered here. What's going on? Or, something else is happening. And I'm like, okay, this is my opportunity. And the reason that I'm here is because I didn't I was never going to be, well, we're never going to be perfect, perfect according to who, but, always going, I'm open and willing and welcome the expansion because of the steps that I'm taking forward. So I encourage everyone to really go, yep, it's we're always going to be learning, we're always going to be expanding. And it's
Gorgeous.
the journey, right? It's the journey is the point. There's no end, because once you reach one thing, there will be something else that you'll be working towards, and they'll bring up a whole bunch of other stuff. So, it's enjoying the journey for what it is.
Excellent. In the early days of this work, I used to say, when you achieve your life goal, your life isn't over. It's really the start. Set the
Yeah.
next goal, right? So this idea that growth is life, that stagnation is death. And so the more we're growing, the more we're confronting our limitations, the more we choose to wake up each day and feel that presence of whatever magnificence is there within us, we're going to be in a continuous process of creating the world we want to live in. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Natalie. And thanks for the great work that you're doing in the world. Much peace, much blessing to you and all your work.
I love you, Paul. I'll chat to you soon.
Bye for now. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Natalie Ledwell. You can learn more about Natalie at natalieledwell.com. That's NATALIELEDWELL.com. And now in the second part of the podcast, it's just you and me. I'll tell you how to use the Paraliminal sessions in the MINDTRX app to easily handle obstacles and move toward the success you want, especially as it relates to Natalie's message. If you're new to the relaxing Paraliminal audio sessions, they use breakthrough technologies to activate your whole mind in only 20 minutes to help improve any area of your life. Let's get going. Welcome to the follow-on to my conversation with Natalie Ledwell, where we were exploring the steps toward manifesting our true desires, our dreams, our wildest dreams. And I love the way Natalie positioned this very simple set of steps towards getting where we want to go. And at each step, we expanded what it is that we have to address in those steps. So as I think about how paraliminal technology may be able to help at each one of these phases, I identified 5 different areas in which paraliminals could help. And the first is the idea of raising our vibrational energy. She said we must do it. We have to have positive thoughts. We have to envision, really embody what it would be like to be at that ideal end result, and so on. Second is the area of optimism and possibility. She talked about positive thinking and being able to position your thinking so that when opportunities become available, we're able to act on it. And if we're not at the vibration of optimism, we're just going to end up creating more of the same. The third area was getting to the actual work, taking the actions necessary to create movement on the goals that we have. So getting to work on our goals. And the fourth area is about confronting resistance. I think if we have a high, hard goal, if we have really transformative purpose, it's going to bring stuff up. And what are we going to do when that stuff shows up? And she had some brilliant insights I really loved. And the final area is about connecting with our inner self. And she had a beautiful process of her connecting. I have some great ideas around that are built into Paraliminals as well. So let's look at these 5 areas. First is raising our vibrational energy. The idea is we need to be in a vibrational match, an energetic match with that goal, that ideal end result that we want to live into. And she talked about this moment of seeing it through her own eyes, feeling it in her own body, to be able to match it up with music and imagery, but that deep felt sense, super important. This is the basis of a paraliminal that I did with Jack Canfield called Living the Law of Attraction. So it's spot on to helping you get to that exact thing that Natalie was referring to as being so important. Second idea was optimism and possibility. And optimism is the knowing that this end result that we desire is going to happen. It's a belief, it's a commitment. We're all in on it. There's no doubt, so that when doubts do show up, we can actually shift that and get back on track. So optimism, as well as being able to sort for the possibilities of making movement, the opportunities as they arrive. We have to be in the right vibrational match in order for that to occur. So there are 2 paraliminals that could help. One is called Finding Treasure. She referred to the reticular activating system. It's a part of the midbrain, which is actually always sorting for what it is that we have posited as the thing we're looking for. Red cars on the road. You're going to see red cars, right? So your reticular activating system is always scanning your environment for the possibilities, the opportunities to take a step forward. Finding Treasure, the Paraliminal, is going to help you do that. The other one that's going to really get us there is gratitude. This idea of being grateful for all that's already given you means that you're going to be recognizing, well, I've done that before. I can do this. And you heard her say it in a couple of different scenarios. Doubts will show up for sure. Being grateful for all the life lessons that you've been through and recognizing, oh my goodness, everything about my life has put me here at this moment to take this very next step. So being very grateful about all the resources that are within and around you at this moment. Very, very powerful. The third area is about getting to the work of our goals. Let's get on with it. And there, the paraliminal, which is ideal, is get around to it. And there are 2 sides or 2 sessions to get around to it, paraliminal. Both of them could be very helpful because we tend to procrastinate, or she said, self-sabotage, when for whatever reason we're blowing the goal out of proportion, or we don't have an identity of ourselves that could help us do this. And the Get Around to It Paraliminal works on that in a very powerful way, really giving you the capability of taking the next step that's yours to take. And the second paraliminal that could be helpful is the new action generator, where you realize you're going to have to take these next new steps. Can you envision? Can you embody? Can you step into? That's what the new action generator will help you do. The fourth area is about confronting resistance. Now, I've talked about it a little bit already. A really good one is the one I did with Hale Dwoskin called Letting Go. And Natalie referred to the idea of letting go. It is important when you get those resisting thoughts to be able to let them go. But how you do that is not by resisting the thoughts of resistance, but welcoming it, realizing it has no power, and then letting it go. So the letting go, it has a technique that Hale Dwoskin of Sedona method produced called triple welcoming, which is my all-time favorite of the Sedona method. Takes you through the process. So wherever you feel some kind of resistance coming up, this is a good way to get through it, get past it. And the other one, which is such a beautiful, peaceful way to do it, it's called Fresh Start. It's a paraliminal I did with Bill Harris of Centerpoint Research. And it's the culmination of his life's work, realizing that every moment we are presented with an opportunity to have a fresh start. So even if we've resisted, even if we might have missed an opportunity, even if we're a little down on ourselves, we can start right at this moment to take the next step forward. Fresh start, super beautiful, very healing, very calming approach to confronting any area in our life where we may have been sabotaging ourselves out of fear. The final area is about connecting with your inner self. I think it's absolutely gorgeous that Natalie spends 15, 20 minutes every day talking with that 3-year-old within her that felt abandoned when her mother left. So, you might not be conscious of an area of your life where you have those sorts of inner wounds or big gaps and resistance that may be coming up, just shows up and we don't have a connection to where some point source from where it's emerging. But we don't need to. The important thing about the kind of work that we do with Paraliminals is say, well, let's start where we are right now. And let's look to where you want to go. Where do you want to be? And the next question is, well, how can we find the resources either within or around you to realize you can create that end result? And this is where the self-love paraliminal is so tremendous. I spoke about the inner elder and the inner child. And in this program, we actually meet up with those two. So it's you, your present self, your younger self, and your future self all getting together. And to really connect and realize that what I do today is not only because of the strength of my past that got me here successfully, but also that I am setting my future self up to be able to have the life that I can imagine, that I know is available to me. So self-love paraliminal, really beautiful. I recorded it. The first time I listened to it, I just wept. It was so moving to me. And it's a culmination of a lot of work that I have experienced and done over the years. Super choice paraliminal self-love. And the other one is called Finding Yourself. So it's looking at the trajectory of your life. And the way it does it is by going back by life stages. It goes all the way back pre-birth. So it's a beautiful, almost metaphysical journey that you're taking to really find your true purpose. And there is a purpose that's within all of us, that it is on our hearts and minds at our birth experience. But because we confront the world as it is and all the programming and all the limitations of the world, it's easy to forget who we are. It's easy to forget how powerful we are and the massively important purpose that we're here to deliver to the world with our gifts, with our talents, with our presence. So finding yourself is a beautiful journey to your true power and full potential. Enjoy listening to these Paraliminals. Thanks for being a part of this podcast. I look forward to being with you again. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me today. I applaud your willingness to maximize your potential. You can easily use the Paraliminal audio sessions in the MINDTRX app to stimulate your non-conscious mind, that is your inner mind, to reduce any resistance in your life and to propel you toward the success you want. Go to www.mindtrx.com/go. That's www.mindtrx.com/go. These amazing audio tools have helped millions, and I encourage you to bring them into your world today. Be sure to be back for more episodes of the MINDTRX podcast. You'll find insightful conversations with authors, experts, and thought leaders, all devoted to improving your life's experience. Thank you again for being here on our MINDTRX podcast.